Hi everyone, this is Lauren coming at you from the break zone with another deck tech video. This one going over the Mono Ice Turbo Disc card that was piloted by Marco Ng over at the Singapore Championship, as he was one of the top two finishers. And this deck is very aggressive, and as the name implies, Turbo Discard, it goes for that heavy discard game plan in order to put your opponent on the back foot and just go for the kill. So let's go over some of his choices. But first, I'd like you to kind of take a quick look at the deck structure that Marco put together. There's a lot of forwards, a couple of summons, a couple of monsters, but only 9 backups, being that normally it seems like he would play with only 1 or 2 backups, if at that. If he actually needs to, if the game goes a little bit longer than expected, as he goes for that really aggressive game plan where you only have 1 or 2 backups. So first off, we've got Snow, who only costs 1, and is actually very good if your opponent only has 1 forward in play, being able to dull them in order to let all of your other forwards go through, including himself. You'll be able to deal damage to your opponent in a very efficient way. Next up, we've got Argus. So for a while, he kind of disappeared as Thaumaturge kind of took over, but in this deck, you actually have both. So here's Argus, and next up we've got Thaumaturge. So just in case you don't know, they just enter the field and then force your opponent to discard a card. And more of the same theme, we've got an Imaginary Champion being able to do so as well. So if Imaginary Champion is the last card in your hand, it actually comes at no detriment to you. So it becomes like a 7,000 power Sarah that is actually well, you could say a generic character, as you could see that little top right icon that has that triple card, meaning that you could have multiple imaginary champions in play. So being able to play it out once, twice, 3 times might put your opponent so far behind that they won't be able to catch up. Well, next up we've got Sarah. So that's such a staple in mono ice that we're all pretty familiar with her. And she's a little bit smaller than the imaginary champion, but you do not have to set her up. You just go ahead and play her, but she only counts at 6,000 power though, which might not be that much of a problem to you. If you're playing this deck, you have so many ways to get around the fact that your forwards aren't that big. Keep in mind that this deck does not use any kind of power boosters, so it actually uses combat tricks in order to deal with opposing forwards, such as, Genesis Dull Freezing, the Laguna combination with Squall to Dull Freeze as well. You've got Sid Osteen to just break if they have no cards in their hand. You've got Vayne in case they're using 5 CP or higher costed forwards. Mateus to just break through most any blockers. You got Shiva, Glacial Ebola, Snow. I mean, there's just so many ways you can get around forwards that being 6,000 power is not the biggest issue. Next up, we've got Genesis, who's been a staple in Mono Ice for quite a while, and we all kind of love to hate him at this point. So being able to dull freeze and discard goes perfectly hand in hand into the theme of this deck. Next up, we've got Squall. Haven't seen him in a while, but being very efficient when you play Squall in combination with Laguna, you do also run 1 Devout, so you can actually go ahead and fetch one of the copies of one or the other in case you draw another copy of the alternate combo and you actually want to go off on it. Being able to force your opponent to, let's say, discard 2 cards, or being able to, let's say they kill your Laguna, go ahead and fetch it back with your Devout so that you can dull freeze your opponent again, and after that you have 2 9,000 power forwards, which are pretty big. And since I mentioned before, you don't have any power boosters, so that's going to be some of your biggest forwards in combination with Sid Osteen. So next up, we've got Laguna, who works as not only an EX burst, but also hand in hand with Squall, being a 9,000 power Genesis. Well, it won't have the discard effect of Genesis whenever it deals damage to your opponent, but being able to dull freeze your opponent when you have so many other ways to force discards is just as good. Next up, we've got Vayne, 2 copies of them, because sometimes they have 5 CP or higher forwards that you need to deal with that are kind of troublesome. I mean, we're talking about like Orphan, Sid Osteen, Opus 3 Deleta, anything like that. Vayne is going to come down and it's going to keep them from actually being able to block you. Next up, we've got Sid Osteen. So with all that discard, Sid Osteen comes in and is very easy to set up so that you'll be able to break opposing fours that are giving you problems. Let's go over some of the summons. Starting off with Mateus. We hate that card. Most people hate that card because it's just so good and so efficient. Being able to turn any of your fours into opponent attackers. Because if anybody kind of goes ahead and tries to force a block or tries to block a forward, whether it's a, let's say, 1000 power thaumaturge, there's always the chance that you have a Mateus, and at that point you can go ahead and break that forward and put them far enough behind they can go for the win. Next up, we've got Shiva, who also works with Snow, by the way, and being able to dull 2 forwards sometimes can just finish the game. And more of the same with Glacial Bolas, being modular and being so flexible in so many ways, being able to force a discard or dull freeze or dull 1 and freeze 1. I mean, you use it, for example, in combination with Snow. Snow attacks, picks a forward, dulls 1, and then go ahead, Glacial Bolas to dull another one, freeze the first one, or even force a discard. Next up, going over some of the backups. In case somebody is trying to race you, go ahead and play that Jilnabot, freeze them out. In case it's a mirror match, you're both trying to go ahead and force each other to discard and be very aggressive. Jilnabot is going to be able to punish your opponent, whether you get it from the EX burst or play it out yourself. And here's the other Jilnabot, Opus 2, just in case you run into a light Fusoya deck where 7,000 power, 7,000 damage is usually enough to take care of most of your forwards besides Sid Osteen and Vayne. So Jilnabot is going to be able to protect you from any kind of shenanigans. Next up, we got Kazusa. So if it's the last card you play in hand, just like Imaginary Champion, you'll be able to force a discard out of your opponent's hand, but you won't be discarding any of yours since you have nothing to discard. And 1 copy of Edward, so keep in mind you're not going to be able to play that summon canceling special, but being another card that forces a discard out of your opponent's hand is always good. And 1 copy of Devout in case you want to bring back any of your forwards besides Sid Osteen, you can go ahead and do so. Works very well with Genesis or in combination with either Squall or Laguna as you bring one of them on the field and you have the other in the break zone. Go ahead and stack them so that they can both check for each other, get the super effect of discarding 2 cards of your opponent out of your opponent's hand, and dull and freezing one of their forwards. Next up, we're going to go over some of the monsters. So people have been scared of Buckaboo when it was initially spoiled for Opus 5. And now we see it being played as 3 copies of, and it is actually pretty darn scary. Normally, it's not a big deal. I mean, they're not getting more value out of Buckaboo than really you are giving out because they're losing 2 cards for your 2 cards, hypothetically. But the fact that this deck runs so aggressive and so efficient means that they're going to really force cards out of your hand, which sets up a Sid Osteen or like a Mateus, which can be backbreaking if, for example, they have Argeth and a Thaumaturge or 2 Thaumaturge in play, and after that they play a Buckaboo. Then next turn, let's say you play even a Guy, then you might just run out of cards, and at the point they just attack. If you were to block and they Mateus, then you might have just lost the game right there. And last but not least, we've got Jesper, who's able to force discard turn after turn after turn. So if you have multiple Jespers in play and you have no cards in hand, go ahead and discard a couple cards out of your opponent's hand. Maybe 1 if you have 1 Jesper, or 3 if you have 3 of them. It's pretty disgusting at that point, and it's very efficient. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this deck tech video. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and feel free to put them down below. If you have any questions regarding, any kind of interaction with this deck, go ahead. We'll try to answer them as quickly as possible if we can. And just as a general reminder, thank you to our sponsor, MagicTechGames.com. And we're still trying to reach out to some of the winners from our previous giveaways, such as the 400 subs giveaway. All right. The new winner needs to contact us by Friday, June 22nd. So go ahead, Bryan, Gamino. Feel free to contact us by sending us an email to the breakzone, FFTCG@gmail.com, or go ahead and send us a message on YouTube. And for our 500 subs giveaway, They have a choice between a Lightning Plushie and Iconic Masters Horizon Canopy. And go ahead and reach us same way through email or messaging us on YouTube. So Eliseo Flores, you are the winner, and we're gonna keep on doing giveaways, by the way. So for 600 subs, when we reach 600 subs, somebody's gonna get picked at random, and they'll get to choose between these Cactuar sleeves or this Mox Amber, and we'll go ahead and send them out to them. We're gonna pick somebody at random from all of our subscribers when we reach 600 subs. And well, I guess last but not least, we've also got Magic Tech doing I guess you could say a raffle. So for every $10 spent until the end of June, you get entered. You get one raffle ticket, and somebody's gonna get picked at random at the end of the month, and they will get a card and sign of Urza from Dominaria. Yay! All right, so thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll actually be streaming the Breakzone will be streaming the Kansas City Crystal Cup this weekend, and next week we'll be doing the SoCal Crystal Cup as well. So hopefully you tune in, and we'll catch you next time.